Faith is something we rarely speak about. We often avoid it out of respect, differences in tradition, but I think more than anything, we avoid talk of faith out of fear. Fear of being manipulated, or being criticized or thought of as naive. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of conflict. Maybe even a fear of manipulating other people. But I think even without religion, without a God or gods to speak of, faith is one of our most powerful human abilities. Faith is the power to change, to start anew, to stay with something difficult, and even to reignite something that's dying. Faith is part of what guides us out of our darkest struggles. And so for this episode, I want us to talk as if faith had nothing to do with belief in a religion at all, but instead as if faith was all about how you show up in love and your life. Because faith invites us into an arena that inherently evolves who we are. Faith opens a level of presence that not only serves the people around us, but makes life itself more vibrant and more satisfying and more fulfilling. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about how, regardless of your belief systems, you are participating in a version of faith, whether you know it or not, whether you're choosing it intentionally, consciously, or not. And I get why we don't talk about it. I get why it feels charged. Because for many of us, faith and religion are tied to painful experiences, to believing something deeply or being told that belief in something makes us good, and only to find out later through hard knocks that it's not true, or that it's not aligned with what we know to be true deep down. And those moments and experiences can leave us feeling stupid or weak or vulnerable or hurt. But regardless of your experiences, regardless of your religion or your lack of religion, regardless of what you were raised to believe or what you hold in your heart to be true, faith is at the core of love and relationship. Even the most secular among us still make sacrifices for love, still surrender to love, still put trust in love. And in this episode, I'm going to explore not just how the act of love itself is faith, but how the stories we carry about faith may be the very key to unlocking our deepest, richest, and most fulfilling love. Stay with me. This is Reclaiming the Gentle Man. I'm Dave Lashansky. So to start out this episode, I think it's really important to lay out what exactly I'm talking about when I'm talking about faith, because I'm not talking about religion, I'm not talking about gods. And this topic is, as I said, so fraught with story and past experience. So let's be clear. I want to give you a definition of faith. So when I'm talking about faith, when I'm using faith in this episode, what I mean is this: trust without proof. Faith is trust without proof. And here's the key. We engage our faith all the time without realizing it. One of my favorite examples of this is engineering infrastructure. So how often when you're driving and you're about to go over a bridge, do you check out that bridge? How often do you pull up the permits on that bridge, check its construction records, its history, look to see if reliable people made it? Or do you just drive over the bridge? Do you trust that the bridge is good enough? Do you trust without proof, definite proof, that the bridge is safe? How about elevators? Where I grew up, every elevator would have a document indicating the date of its last inspection and who the inspector was, and people would ride these elevators multiple stories into the air without really thinking about it, without noticing it. They simply put their faith in the systems we have in place to ensure their safety. And ironically, I would always check these documents, and I was blown away at how often the elevator safety inspections weren't up to date. I had a friend that lived in an apartment complex whose elevators were over a year overdue for inspection. And yet, basically, the entire property of tenants would ride this elevator every single day, multiple times a day, putting their faith in a safety that was documented in front of them as not being guaranteed. And there are countless ways that we operate in the world on this kind of blind faith, a kind of faith that is actually, honestly, dangerous, right? Riding expired elevators is not a safe thing to do. But we do it because it's convenient. We put our faith, we trust without proof that we're going to be okay because it's expedient. And in the end, most of us, most of the time, are fine. The elevator never broke down on me, and my friend who used it every day was also fine. And the vast majority of us listening to this podcast are going to be fine riding on bridges that we trust can hold us. There would be a waste of time and energy to investigate all the things we will very likely be safe using or participating in during our life. And this is partly because we have great systems in place that make that possible, even if they're flawed. But it's also partly because of this. Safety, guaranteed safety, is an illusion. There is no guarantee of safety in life. At any moment, your life could change. Lightning could strike. The literal earth beneath your feet could quake and shift and destroy everything. We live in that impossible state every single day, every single moment. And yet, something keeps us going. Something gets us out of the safety of our bed and into the world, and among the infinite potentials, good and bad, in spite of no guarantee of safety. And what I'm proposing in this episode is that there are two versions of faith that account for this. This ability to, in the face of infinite potentials, get up and choose. And those two versions of faith are this: the faith of fear and the faith of love. Let's start first with the faith of fear. It sounds like this: I don't have a choice. I have to do this. I have to make money to survive, to feed my family, my kids, myself. I have to be a good person. I have to. I don't have a choice. I have to get out of bed. I have to use this elevator. The doctrine of the faith of fear is a version of faith that is driven by the infinite negative and scary potentials. The doctrine of fear is based only on what it believes is reason and logic. The faith of fear states that we must use the elevator anyway because the probability of what could go wrong in the elevator is less intense, less imminent than the probability of what will happen if we don't make it out the door, if we don't get to our jobs, if we don't have enough money, if we don't find love, if we miss the party, if we miss life. The operating system of the faith of fear is the most common form of faith that all of us adopt and employ at some point in our lives. And you might be thinking, how is fear a form of faith? And why would we even call it faith and not just fear? So to talk about this, I want to go back to our definition of faith for a second, because it matters why we're calling it faith here. The definition of faith again is this: trust without proof. The faith of fear is trusting without proof that a given choice will yield less pain than another choice. When we make choices with this lens, the lens of this will yield less pain than this, we are enacting, employing, acting on a form of faith. It is a deduction made from the limited knowledge we've collected in life. from what we've seen work, from what we've experienced before. And the truth is, our experiences and what we see and what we can deduce is inherently incomplete. We are always making choices without complete knowledge. But what is driving that choice is where faith comes in. What matters is what is the foundation driving the choice. And that foundation is a form of faith. And often it is the form of faith that worships comfort and familiarity without guaranteed proof that it's actually less painful. The faith of fear worships at the altar of not being wrong. It's the part of us that makes sure we won't be duped again, that we won't be hurt again. It's the part of us that is skeptical and wary and whose worst nightmare is going down a path and realizing it's the wrong one. And the sad truth is that most of the choices that we make out of fear, in the long run, are more painful. It's the choice to stay in the job that is sucking your soul because it's financially secure. It's the choice to stay in a relationship with someone that we genuinely don't love because we're convinced it feels better than being alone, than seeking a deeper bond. The faith of fear seduces us with short-term comfort at the expense of everything and anything we're willing to sacrifice to avoid discomfort. And what I'd like to consider for this podcast is that many of us operate out of the faith of fear very often in our relationships. The faith of fear is what's active every time we show up to our relationship on autopilot. The faith of fear is active every time we choose our partner, but still hide, still take them for granted, still don't trust them. And it's not about being perfect, and it's not about the faith of fear being bad. This is actually useful to us sometimes. Sometimes we're right to hide from a partner that doesn't respect us. Sometimes we're right to not trust someone who doesn't deserve or who hasn't earned, who has broken our trust. The faith of fear is not a bad thing, and we all participate in it, all of us. It's natural, it is inherited, it's genuinely a part of being a human being in the world. It is trust without proof that we know the map of our lives, that we can navigate the infinite potentials with what we've witnessed and deduced from life, with what we've learned and watched happen in life, even though it can't be true. Because infinite potential cannot be mapped. It is infinite. By nature, it cannot be navigated. In fact, in the presence of infinity, all we can do is bear witness. And this leads to the other version of faith that is available for us to choose. The other motivation for getting out of bed, for choosing to love even when it's hard, when our instinct is telling us to run. And that is the faith of love. The doctrine of the faith of love reads something like this. It says, this feeling of excitement, of joy, this feeling of fulfillment or satisfaction is important. It says, though I do not know where it leads, I will follow this path because something inside of me tells me it's right. Something deep inside of me is telling me it's right. The doctrine of the faith of love is trusting without proof that the risk is worth the reward. That an open heart somehow directs the infinite potentials of the world in our favor. That beholding all of the infinite potentials, the infinite possibilities of what could possibly happen, can be an act of love and reverence. And that when we behold infinity with love and reverence, it will reveal the next right action for us. It will take us where we wish to go. The faith of love is making a choice in the face of infinite choices without worrying if we could have chosen better, without regretting what other choices we left behind. It is trusting without proof that love is guiding us in the right direction. So let's ground this. Because when we enter into a relationship, when we embark on a path of love, it is very easy to allow fear to guide us. It is very normal and common to keep our eyes open for other opportunities, better partners, more attractive partners, other lives we could live, other choices we could make. It is very easy and natural to operate in a relationship, even a loving relationship, with fear. It looks like letting autopilot take over, allowing the undercurrent of anxiety and trepidation and dissatisfaction and numbness to govern us most of the time. Now, every single day I talk to people that feel like life has nothing more to offer. It is so common now to encounter this in the world. People that struggle with constant numbness, with a fear that drives them to the next action and the next path that hopefully leads to less pain. And so many of these people are also in relationships, and they would describe themselves as being in love. And yet they live nearly constantly in the faith of fear. And this isn't about casting judgment. It is absolutely possible to be both in love and live with faith of fear. But the reason I'm making this episode, and honestly the reason I do everything I do, the reason I feel like I'm here on this earth, is to help you wield your agency, your power to choose, to make a conscious choice in service of your highest good, whatever that means for you. And what I know, because I've experienced it for myself, because I've helped men and couples through this process, is that faith of love opens life's most joyous moments, its greatest gifts. Faith of love is the greatest gift. Because when we make a conscious choice to lean in the tough moments, to stay present even when we're hurt, to stay present when we've hurt someone, to step towards someone that we want to be with in the hard moments and open our hearts, to be in the moment together, to trust that this person, even though they may have hurt you, wants the best for us, even if your past experiences and everything in your body is telling you to duck and cover. Those moments when you put your faith in love, when you surrender to that, can remind us that there is magic in the world. And they can show us the true nature of our power. They bring a shine to life that doesn't exist elsewhere, outside of the faith of love. Those are the moments that open us to the gifts that we didn't think we deserved and that we were too afraid to claim that we actually want. But faith of love requires our best. It requires effort. It requires failing. And it takes time to cultivate inside of a relationship. But it is possible. I've seen it and I've done it. Choosing the faith of love is the difference between fighting about something you did wrong and being able to hear it and change it. Choosing the faith of love over the faith of fear is the difference between assuming they hurt you because they're malicious and wanted to, or because they simply didn't realize that that was a sore spot for you. They simply didn't understand you, and they want to. We default to fear so often in these scenarios because it requires none of our choice and none of our intention. It is autopilot. We default to fear. We choose fear because we all have a part of us that wants to protect us from what could go wrong. We naturally don't want to get hurt. But when we don't consciously make this choice, when we do not consciously protect ourselves, When we barricade ourselves in our fortified bunkers out of fear and get defensive and put up a fight, we actually imprison ourselves. We push people that love us away. We limit what we believe is possible to only what could possibly go wrong. We can only see the things that could break through the walls we've built up around us, that could threaten our safety and comfort. Because that fear begets more fear. And the pain that we really want to avoid just occurs over a longer period of time. And when we choose the faith of love, it requires a conscious choice. It requires choice and intention. It requires us to know ourselves, to get quiet, and sometimes to fall to our knees and surrender. And sometimes that means being willing to get hurt, to accept that we are not in control, and that whatever may come will offer us what we want or the lesson that we need. So consider this question. Whether you're in a relationship or whether you're in a job you love or hate, no matter where you are, in this moment, what are you choosing in your relationship to your life? Is it faith of love or faith of fear? What potentials do you accept as being possible for you? Are you avoiding the worst case scenario, or are you pursuing what you want with an open heart? And if you're in a relationship, consider what faith in the love you have sounds like. If we consider the promises we make when we embark in love, when we choose something, when we choose someone, when we enter a marriage, we are risking so much. We're confronting potentially the deepest pain someone can experience in their lifetime. Loss, rejection, abandonment. And if we spend our relationships choosing, consciously or not, to avoid hurt, to avoid pain, we are also choosing to put a cap on how much we can grow together, on how much we can receive from the love that we are choosing. And when we choose someone and choose the faith of love and open up to all possibility, when we accept that hurt is possible and we lean in anyway, when we step towards someone in the heat of the moment without the armor on, because we know the love we want, the love we deserve, requires us to be able to do this, to grow into someone who can do this, to be with someone who can participate in this with us. We know that that's worth the potential pain. It's worth the discomfort. It's worth failing a few times. Because the rewards of love like that, the rewards of love, the rewards of faith of love are genuinely life's greatest gifts. And all of us choose love to experience that. So make that choice consciously. Ask what faith in love would do. And take the next step, even in the face of infinite possibilities. Thank you for listening to this episode of Reclaiming the Gentleman. This episode was born out of a lot of my own participating in faith, especially recently. I talked about in my last episode my new morning rituals that I made a promise to my partner that I would participate in have been really a powerful act of faith. It's been an act of connecting with nature in a way that sometimes feels totally hollow and inaccessible and sometimes feels like the greatest thing in the world. And I wanted to make this episode because I see how all of us are making choices on blind faith all the time. And how when we bring consciousness to that, it just opens up the possibility. It opens up what's available to us. And when we can do that in love, when we can do that for ourselves, it changes everything. If I can access deep presence even just one more time a day, that's going to change my life. If I can hold myself more tenderly, if I can show up to my relationship more calmly, more presently, more ably, it's going to change the trajectory I'm on. And when we make that choice with consciousness, what opens up to us is way better than we expected sometimes. So make the choice more consciously. Ask what faith and love would do, and take the next step in the face of infinite possibilities. There is a free workshop coming up at the end of September, and I would love for you to participate. This is really all about the parts of us that are needed in order to enhance our relationship. It's what we need to make that relationship that might feel stuck or stagnant, that might feel really hard, too hard sometimes, possible, juicy, fun again. It's how we bring more of ourselves to the table when that's what's being called for. And the truth is, that's almost always what's being called for in relationship. So, go to davelashansky.com, sign up for the priority waitlist, and you'll be the first to know when that free class goes live. I would love to see you there. As always, this episode was produced by me through my production company, David Benjamin Sound, LLC. You can check us out at davidbenjaminsound.com. And if you are interested in podcasting, learning about podcasting for you or your business, get in touch. We'd love to chat with you. We host free webinars every single month on how to podcast for your brand. As always, thank you for listening. I appreciate your time and your ears more than you know. I'll be back in a week.